Hello, everyone. We're into part two now, Pablo Picasso. So where we left it off, it's like I'm going to talk about Picasso does it differently, does it like it's never been done before. We've got this primitive drive within him to get to this deep honesty of what creating a piece of art is all about. Going back to when there was no Paris salon jewelry or no collectors, no galleries, etc., that it was just done for its pure essence, the beauty of its essence. And another a good example of how Picasso takes this and does it differently is his mural entitled Guernica, which he painted in 1937. Guernica is a town in northern Spain that was bombed in the Spanish Civil War by the Hitler Luftwaffe, but under the direction of Franco. And an horrific event. Hundreds of innocent people were killed and slaughtered. And you know, so I guess I'm saying Picasso. He's like he honors those artists that came before him, including all the way back to the primitive sense, but he also honors humankind with paintings such as this. That it's he's making us look into ourselves, and there's this cubist bent that's here to this painting too, and that we've got these fractured geometrical forms overlapping each other all over the place, but there's really no one focal point here. There's no one of that trick of illusion, as Brock would call it. And in a sense, what's going on here by Picasso doing it in this manner, the whole story is being told at once. And it's kind of like this fourth dimension. We just melt into everything here. I mean, there's this going on over here, there's that there, this horrific scene here and there. And basically he's capturing these hours of this horrific event all into this one image. And by using this kind of cubist technique to do that, here's a Goya portrait of, I forget, this was a revolution in Spain. I forget my dates or what the name of the revolution was, but this would be the typical portrait. We go to one point. Very effective painting, very beautiful colors, very wonderful use of the light and mystery and et cetera, et cetera. But it's not as all encompassing as what Picasso is trying to do. And here he is working on the mural. The mural was shown at the World's Fair in Paris in 1937 in the Spanish Pavilion. And, he's speaking up for his country. And, there's a story too that there's an event in Paris during World War II where Picasso was a lot, in the south of France. He tried as much as he could to get out of all of that. And but he's at some function of highbrows in Paris. And in the room, there's a photograph, a large photograph of the Guernica mural, and I'm not sure why it's there or what the event was. But anyway, a German general walks up to Picasso and points to the Guernica mural photograph and says, "You did this?" And in a complimentary way. And Picasso turns around and looks at me and says, "No, you did this." So anyway, found that an interesting story. Here's yours truly on the left with my son-in-law, Arnal from Barcelona. We're viewing this mural. And then, this sense of honor and duty. Las Meninas is a famous painting from 1600s by Diego Velázquez. And the Picasso spent I don't know, it says here from August to December, 5 or 6 months. I think it was actually longer, but he painted 50 something renditions of this Las Meninas. He studied it to death. And Las Meninas is an iconic painting. Some people, it's the greatest painting ever. And but what makes this painting unique? A couple of things, but the common story is that you have Velázquez here as the painter, And this is a mirror reflecting King Philip and the Queen that's reflecting him off them. But Velasquez is out here looking, he's painting their portrait. And so there's this kind of, use of the mirror and this point of view. And, people say, well, that's what Cezanne was doing, these multiple points of view. And that's true in a sense too. And you have an unusual point of view. You have the artist looking at us instead of us, looking at their work. But there's also, this image does not do it justice. But if you see this painting up close, it's in that El Prado in Madrid. The eyes and the look and the expression of each one of these people. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the dog 12. They're all looking in a different direction, and which is, one thing. And you see that in some Renaissance paintings where people are kind of gathered in different places, but the intensity of their look is just it's like nothing I've ever seen. And basically, it's kind of like the Guernica mural. There's all these different things going on, and that's the reality of the room. It's not like everybody's focused on this one point, and this is, 300 years before Picasso is working on this. And, he's intrigued by it, and he studies it to death. And Picasso says of it, suppose one were to make a copy of Las Meninas in good faith. If it were me, the moment would come when I would say to myself, suppose I move this figure a little to the right or a little to the left. If the case arose, I would do it my own way. Forgetting Velasquez, I would almost certainly be tempted to modify the light or arrange it differently in view of the changed position of the figures. Gradually, I would create a painting of Las Meninas, sure to horrify a specialist in the copying of old masters. It would not be the one he thought he saw on Velasquez's canvas. It would be my Las Meninas. Well, I mean, that's a little bit of pride in there. It's like my Las Meninas. But, the point being here, Picasso studied this painting for months and months and months. What is Velasquez up to? And these are some of the smaller paintings that come out of, his work. And this is a much larger painting that's, kind of encompasses the entire scene of Velasquez. And note, in these ones, I'll show you this, he was the head servant of the king and queen, supposedly. He's there in the back, in that back door. And here's the side by side. Notice there's the servant in the back door there. Servant in the back door. But, look how Picasso's distorting these images in his own way. He's making it mine. And he's put in this cubist bend here. It's like the Guernica, it's everything's fractured and apart. It's like, our life's fractured and apart in many ways. That's all not just negative. It's just kind of the way it is. And the story is being told. There's very many components to the story, but it's like told all at once, in a sense, which is something that it's I don't know, it's possibly a higher form of relating to the visual image. And this, I love this gray. I like grays, and Picasso grays are always just wonderful. But I looked at this for a while. It's like, what is that? And it's like, whoa, that's Las Meninas, and there's the guy in the back, and there are the windows and the paintings up above. And it's just Picasso taking a piece of work and making it his own. He's not making it better. He's not making it worse. He's just using his talent to make it resonate with what he feels. And it's like the Impressionists. It's like, don't paint the object so much, paint what it makes you feel. You see this image a lot is in postcards, Picasso. Yours truly standing next to the larger Las Meninas. And he gave these paintings to there's a wonderful Picasso museum in Barcelona, much smaller than the one in Paris. But he gave all his Las Meninas work to the Paris Museum, to the Barcelona Museum. Another example of this kind of sense of duty and this honor and this, I don't know, the Picasso humility, which a word you usually don't associate with him, but I see it in a lot of the ways he worked, and he goes to Valerius, and I think they had a house there. If not there, they did for a little while. It was outside of Valerius, but in 1948. So let's see, he's 48 plus. He's 67 years old, and he goes there and focuses on sculpture. And there's a couple there that have like a renowned sculpture studio, and he goes and buddies up with them and spends his days at the studio making sculptures. This is a street scene from the town of Valerius that I grabbed off the internet. And there's Picasso working on some sculptures intensely. And this is a Picasso sculpture. And, you know, the in syncness of being in sync with his surroundings, like, we talked about with Van Gogh and Cezanne and Monet being out in nature, and how they, picked up this perfect pitch of the magic that nature can put down. And I just think it's uncanny to look at this sculpture and see how it's just part of Valerius and its beauty. And I just threw this in there, sculptures. This was a sculpture in the museum in Paris that I saw last year, but I thought of this, how loose and free this is, and simple and expressive and clear and fresh. It's Picasso. And the Monet saying, I want to paint as a bird sings. It's like Picasso. I want to, paint as a child runs or jumps. And anyway, a pretty cool sculpture, pretty simple. And, look at the shadow it casts in the back. And whoever curated this museum, it's completely intentional, but, it's just, I've never been a big fan of sculpture. Somebody said a sculpture is something you trip over while you're looking at paintings in a museum. But this is quite magnificent, I'd have to say. And then, into this honor and duty, Picasso thought the world of Van Gogh. They say for many years he carried around in his wallet a news clipping of Van Gogh's obituary. And this is a Picasso painting here on the right, done outside of Arles, where Picasso spent many years, or several years. That's where his episodes started happening and where he cut off his ear, etc. But this is a Picasso on the left. A Van Gogh on the left and Picasso on the right. And, done many years after Picasso had passed away, 30 or 40 years. But, he thought a lot of Van Gogh and studied his work. And I'm going to pass on that slide. Picasso on the left, Van Gogh on the right. You can just see how they had a similar energy. And there's probably, I want to say some of the demons that haunted Van Gogh. I want to say that Picasso kind of felt a kindred spirit with that, perhaps. And then Rembrandt, there was a period they say that Picasso had an operation, I think, in 65, and so he's quite elderly, and he wasn't doing so well, and he picked up a thick book on Rembrandt, read all about Rembrandt, and put images of Rembrandt up around his walls and studied the heck out of him. And then this is kind of showing that, Picasso wasn't the cad that we all, think of sometimes. But Joan Miró, who was 2 years younger than Picasso, that was born in Barcelona. Picasso knew him, they were buddies. And Miró painted very abstract. He's one of the kings or the leaders of the early modern art, before Jackson Pollock, etc. And Picasso and some Mondrian and Giacometti, some of those guys, they led the way with this very modern art that began at the turn of the century. And this is an example of a Miró on the right. But Miró was being criticized, of course. This Picasso was having a hard time being accepted with some of his images. Miró, it was finding it impossible and subject to a lot of criticism. But so Miró visits Picasso and writes this letter in response after the visit, a thank you note. He said, "You have done me good this morning, Picasso. Before I came to you, I was buried in dark thoughts which you have driven away. You spoke to me with great sincerity. I do not care at all if I am wrong. I would rather walk my entire life in darkness, provided that At the end of my existence, I experience a spark or some ray of pure sunshine rather than walk like young people in artificial lighting borrowed from the arches. I feel again the authoritarian need to work. Thank you, sincerely yours, Moreau. And Picasso also had told Moreau at some point, not sure where this came from, but he said, "You're the one opening new doors." So, point being, Picasso knew as well as anyone what it was like to be criticized, and but at the same time, having this inner knowing that you're doing something really, really powerful and really good, like we talked about with Pissarro, and helping Monet and Renoir and Degas and those guys. It's like, no, the way you're painting, the heck with the salon jury and what they say, you're opening new doors. Keep at it. And yeah. So I'm going to show this artist and the model getting away from the sense of duty. And it's just, again, Picasso, he worked very hard. He didn't take himself like too seriously, I want to say. Uh, but he had an intense curiosity, which included those that came before him. And it's like, no, I want to be as good as they are. And of course, there's a little bit of probably, I want to be the best ever. It's like when he competes with Matisse and his Demoiselles, it's like, no, no, Matisse, I'm going to get all the attention. There was plenty of that, but at the same time, it kind of came from an honest place, I want to say. But I just put these in here because I like this series of work this did. And, a lot of painters have paintings, to kind of a self-portrait of them painting a model. But I just find these, I don't know, they speak to me more than a lot of the other paintings. The wonderful colors, their simplicity here. And point out here that, this, as I did with this blue nude, this form is very twisted in a sense. And the lower part of the body and the upper part of the body, they're not in sync with each other. But still, it didn't matter. It's kind of like there's multiple points of view here. You're it's trying to grab that whole, that fourth dimension whole, twisted yet unified. So let's talk about Picasso's relationships. There were many. There were 5 that were, I think, significant, worthy of just kind of putting them out there. The first was with Fernande Olivier, and they were together from 1904 to 1912. And they say that, that's who he was with when he was painting Mademoiselle or Demoiselles d'Avignon, so that she would have been a model for that. But this is one of the portraits he did of her, and it's like, this oblong face and the way her face is here, I don't see it, but if I'd hung around her a while, there's probably, and you looked at one of Picasso's paintings, you probably put 2 and 2 together. But again, her face in the famous painting. And why he distorted these figures or their faces so much, I don't have a good answer. I've got a couple of things I'll talk about that sort of make sense. But the second major relationship in his life was Olga Kokolova. She was a Russian ballerina, and they were married. Picasso was madly in love with her, took her back to Barcelona to meet his mother, etc. And I think his father might have still been alive or just passed away. But anyway, he was head over heels over her. And anyway, that, ended up where a lot of these things end up. But she would never divorce him, and he had several relationships prior to marrying again. And she passed away in 1955, and that's when he was able to go ahead and marry somebody else in the eyes of the church, etc. And they had one son, Polito. Don't know a lot about Polito. These are some of the paintings that he was doing and her at the time. And a third relationship, Marie-Therese Walter. Her mother was French, her father was Swiss, born out of wedlock. But anyway, she was 17, he was 45, and they were together for 8 years. They had a daughter named Maya, or Maya is still alive. And there's two-part BBC documentary that's on YouTube that's not too bad. And she does a lot of commentary in that. And she's quite wonderful to listen to. I would say the daughter, Maya, and some paintings of Marie Therese. And fourth relationship, Francois Gillot. They were together for 10 years. They had two children, Claude and Paloma, that are still both alive today. And I believe in that documentary, Paloma speaks a little bit too. But you can Google them and find out a lot about them. I think they're doing just fine, I want to say. But some classic pictures you see of Francois and Picasso. So she was a wonderful painter on her own, and I believe she passed away in 2022. I'm not sure when she was born, but anyway, she was almost 100 years old and painted up to, like Picasso, to her final days. This is some of her work here. There's a real good video from the Tate Museum. There's a couple of them where she's interviewed. They're like 4 or 5 minutes long, and very powerful woman. And she was after Picasso, she married Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio. And somebody asked her, why are you with such powerful men? And she goes, lionesses marry lions, or something like that. So the last woman in his life, he was with her for 20 years until the end, Jacqueline. And they met when he was in Polaris at the pottery studio. And for a couple of years, I think they saw each other every now and then. But then she moved in, and they were eventually married. And right after Olga passed away in 55. So she was 27 and he was 72. Again, the age difference continues. But he painted over 400 paintings of her. And again, she was with him for 20 years of his life, the last 20 years of his life. Some of the paintings of her. And, this was something that I made a mistake here. I was putting together one of these slides. I think the painting here, or the photograph here on the left of Jacqueline and Picasso and his dachshund dog here. And, on the Las Meninas, there's a dog down here at the bottom of the painting. I'm not sure if it's in this one specifically. But anyway, I stuck this slide next to this slide, and I didn't mean to. I was trying to stick it in a different slide, and all of a sudden I look at them and I'm like, I don't know, they kind of look alike. The way the fractured nature of this photograph and the way the darks and the lights are, it's it's an example of real life and a painting kind of being in sync with each other. Maybe a stretch. And Picasso painted landscapes. And it's like I've looked at his work for years and I've hardly ever seen a landscape that one landscape that's like Van Gogh. I saw that, but last year, 2023, it was the 50-year anniversary of his passing, and like the museum in Paris, changed everything up, a big to do, and all over the world. If you had some kind of anything Picasso, you were going to make a big deal of it that year to try to, get some attention to what you wanted to exhibit. But anyway, somebody put together an exhibit of landscapes that travel the countries, and anyway, I recently got the book and I really liked it. But, so note that Picasso painted very few landscapes, quite a few still lifes, but it's the portrait, it's the human figure that he was always painting. And, that kind of gets to where, well, let's look at the landscapes for a minute. I would see these and it's like, no way that's Picasso. And then this roofs of Barcelona that he kept with him all his life. I have a daughter that lives in Barcelona, and like the Mediterranean's right there. They're about 5 blocks away from it. And, when I go there and I sit on her patio and I look out to the, I guess that's to the south, I get this same sensation that I see of this painting. I believe it's painted in 1903, but it's kind of that zeitgeist of Barcelona that was there then and that's still there today. And, Picasso kept it with him. I guess it gave him a feeling of being at home. And then back to, Van Gogh on the left, Picasso on the right, Picasso on the left, Van Gogh on the right, just picking up on that energy of Van Gogh. And, it's like Van Gogh, he said, you can see all of humanity when you paint a portrait. And I think, that's what was more fascinating to Picasso was looking at the inner life of somebody else. And here his last major exhibit, it's a lot of him looking at the inner life of himself rather than a model. Uh, this this Palace of the Popes in Avignon in southern France, there was an exhibit of his work, 160 paintings, 45 drawings in 1970. He's 89 years old. And this is kind of the interior of the building, this hallowed place. And we get these, not so hallowed images up there. And, quite the contrast of, you're in this kind of reverential space and you have these kind of distorted, troubling images. And, people say, well, he's just an old man. He's crazy. And, the subject matter is too hard to look at. But I want to say what's in these paintings, there's still this freshness. There's still this Christmas, this simplicity, this immediacy that Picasso could put down from day one, and he's still putting it down, and that's kind of the point, It's like, that he wanted to paint the human. It's like the human is complex. We're not all, cherries and roses inside. And I think he wanted to get to that truth, get to that honesty of it. And I put this one in here, this is from the Barcelona Museum on the right, the National Catalunya Museum. But I don't know the significance of two people together, but this is two people together here. This kind of looks same. But self-portrait, 90 years old, he's getting to the truth. And again, he's doing it differently. And, thinking about painting all the human spirit at a time, I heard somebody say, painting's just not about doing the paint, it's about discovery. And, Picasso had this incessant drive to discover, in a sense. And with this exhibit, he's not just distorting a model, he's distorting himself, a model on the left, himself on the right. He's taking a look at himself. That's kind of the hardest place to look. And, why does he distort? I don't know. I really don't. And I think about that all the time, but, it's like we're complex. I think he said, because, the body is an unstable entity. And it's like, well, let's, we don't have to paint it stable all the time. Let's try to paint it unstable. And in a sense too, there's kind of this distortion in here, which is troubling, and let's call it ugly. But the painting, you step back from a distance, it's like, that's a beautiful green. That's a beautiful rose. That's a beautiful yellow, ochre. And it's this unified whole that's there no matter what the content is. A little bit of grace and a little bit of not so grace. And just, thinking about Van Gogh again and his famous painting, The Potato Eater, said, which his brother Theo, the art dealer, said, oh, no, Van Gogh, the colors are just, drab, and those people are, just, why are you painting peasants? Like, can't you paint something more pleasant? And it's kind of like, Van Gogh said, no, I'm painting the real people. These people are really in touch with nature. They have a dignity about them. They don't fit into the natural world, but there's something true and honest here. And this is a Picasso. I think it's a drawing, a pen and ink here on the left, but these people are definitely not bells of the ball here. And I think about the Guernica mural. Aesthetically, it's stunning. But underneath it all, it's as ugly as humanity can get. And I'm just thinking Picasso, as talented as he was with the paint, he just kept trying to, get down to get down to it, down as low as he could go, but still make it pretty. And well, I'm kind of off topic here, but I talk about this full experience of space, which came about with the cubism. But we get away from the perspective, and again, it's a bigger energy that he's trying to get in touch with. The full experience of ourselves that we're always curious about, that we're trying to get in touch with. And a couple of cultural items here. He was from Spain, but from an early age, 20 years old on, he lived in Paris, and he wanted to go back to Spain a lot, especially, but with Franco, that was pretty much impossible. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I'm reading a biography of Picasso, and there's something in there about the Spanish, the way they view the world. And it said Spain has always had the honor of offering the world the most vivid and violent contrast. And these are two Francisco Goya images, and Picasso admired Goya very much. No evidence that he took a Goya painting and went after it, like he did Velázquez Las Meninas. But I'm sure there's a lot of Goya in some of his paintings that I'm just completely not aware of. But again, that Spanish kind of that Spanish edge. And Picasso once said, "You forget I'm Spanish and I love sadness." And then his friend Georges Braque, who co-created Cubism with him, when that primitive period was starting to come around, Braque was pretty dismissive of it. And Picasso said, Braque didn't understand primitive art. He didn't have superstition. So again, it's this kind of Spanish darkness that's in there. And then, when the primitive mass came up, there's some words from Picasso. He said, if you give form to spirits, we can become independent of them. And so you think about these tribal images and the fetishes they had, it was to evoke the spirits. And a lot of time it was like somebody's trying to maintain power over the people with their, the kind of the spooky spiritual kind of thing. And Picasso said, no, I need to face those spirits and have them not rule me so violently. And looking into a human person like Van Gogh, see all of humanity, good and bad. That's what Picasso was doing. And Edgar Allan Poe, he said, no man has dared to look into the dark depths of his soul. I mean, he's saying, but I have. And Picasso, I think he dared to look into the dark depths of his soul, humanity's soul. And think about it too, that the tradition of the Romanesque art, the tradition of Velázquez and Goya and the Renaissance, those painters that came before him, Rembrandt, there's a lot of, typically in those paintings, not always, but there's a lot of like drama and tragedy and, just kind of a harshness of life and, kind of scary stuff in some way. And I think, that's kind of the history of painting, and Picasso wanted to carry that on. We get to a French Impressionist painting. It's Monet's scene on the the party on the Seine, or Renoir's the party boat. That's great, but Picasso said, no, I want to take it a little bit deeper and see if I can take that hard stuff and make it beautiful in a sense, or make it true, which is going to be truth is beauty and beauty is truth, and part of truth is going to be this not so beautiful. And just Matisse on the left, Picasso on the right, a figure, Matisse this kind of rounded softness, Picasso this kind of hardness. I don't know if that means anything. And then think about it too. So the teens, we have World War I. The 1930s, we had the Spanish Civil War, 1939, 38, 45, we had World War II, and all the horror that goes with that, especially if you live in Europe and, Paris is pretty messed up in both of those situations. Barcelona is destroyed in the Spanish Civil War. Picasso had his formative years. An artist being sensitive to their surroundings in the world. That this distortion, and I hate to keep using the word ugly, but this harshness that we find in Picasso's paintings. I just think he's just trying to be in sync with what's really out there and just not gloss over it. But again, back to Picasso, this guy that I don't know. I felt like he was kind of above it all. He didn't get bogged down in the avant-garde kind of pretentious world, and he just kept doing his own thing. And a reporter asked him once late in life, he said, "Which book do you prefer of those written about you?" And he said, "The one in Japanese I couldn't read." I like that. And that's saying if I run out of blue, I use red. Some wonderful books on Picasso, this early years. It's wonderful images of his early paintings, before we get into the cubism and the stuff that gets a little hard to relate to sometimes, but and wonderful narratives about his life as a young man. And then this Picasso, The Foreigner. This came out last year. The author is a good artist, writer, and but it's a wonderful, biography of Picasso's life in many ways, and a lot of new things I'd never heard about. But a lot of it's based upon, he's a man without a country, because the French never accepted him. They always thought he was some kind of like a communist or some kind of subversive to something, or a friend of Hitler's, or this, that, and the other. And basically, Picasso was none of that. He just wanted to paint. But it's a good read. I would recommend it. And then there's 4 volumes from John Richardson, Life of Picasso. It ends, I think, in the 1940s or 50s. There's still another 20 years of Picasso's life to go over, and I think Richardson had passed away before he could finish any more volumes. But it's not a bad read either. And then we'll talk about Matisse next week, and I'll put more of this in there, but there's some wonderful interaction between Picasso and Matisse all their life. And this artist, author Jack Flem, he's kind of the most noted artist on Matisse, and that's not a bad read either. It's fun to compare the two, and you can learn, by comparing. It's a good learning mechanism. And lastly, we get into Picasso's process and the demonstration I'll do later. Talk about copying other artists, and this is what Picasso said. What does it mean for a painter to paint in the manner of so-and-so, or actually imitate someone else? What's wrong with that? On the contrary, it's a good idea. You should constantly try to paint like someone else. But the thing is, you can't. You would like to, you try, but it turns out to be a botch. And it's at that very moment you make a botch of it, you are yourself. So 2 points there. That making a botch is good, as is copying other painters. And then he also went on to say, fundamentals will never let you down. Again, he was academically trained. He knew how to handle the paint like nobody's business, and had studied it intensely for many years. But also take it another step, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And then, the simplicity of his paintings, and it's wonderful, and it speaks to the freshness, or adds to the freshness. And he says, it took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, a great Renaissance painter, but a lifetime to paint like a child. He said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once one grows up. So, he's conscious of some of these wonderful, energetic thoughts. And, Jackson Pollock, the abstract expression, he said, everybody tries to pull their hair out trying to understand my painting. He said, it's no different than looking at a bed of flowers. Just enjoy the moment. And Picasso, same kind of thing, many years earlier. He said, everyone wants to understand painting. Why not try to understand birdsong? So when you don't understand some of this stuff, it's good. It's okay. But the one I like the best here from Picasso is, he said, the world doesn't make sense, so why should I paint pictures that do? All right, the end. Thank you very much. That's Picasso Part 2. And we will, next week, we'll be discussing Matisse. Thank you very much.